What's up, guys? On their way to a party, the elderly couple Larry and Joan keep arguing about every topic that comes to mind. They are so distracted that they almost crash into another car. When they arrive at their son's house, Larry covers the bandage on Joan's arm with her sleeve and reminds her that she needs to tell the family about her cancer. Joan asks for one more day because she doesn't want to ruin her grandson's gender reveal party. The family greets the couple with a warm welcome and jokes about their 65 years of marriage. They also tell Joan they found a box of her old photos in the basement. One of the photos is from Joan's wedding to her first husband, Luke, who died during the war. Meanwhile, Larry is eating some pretzels when he suddenly starts to choke. He struggles to breathe as he falls to the floor. Seconds later, he is shocked to wake up on a train with pink confetti falling on his head. A boy in an oversized suit says Larry wasn't expecting that before he left. When the train stops at the station, Larry notices that many passengers are wearing hospital gowns. He follows the passengers until he reaches a crowded area known as the Junction, where many people are saying things he doesn't understand. Larry tells the receptionist he was abducted, but she assures him he wasn't, and that he has to wait until his AC comes to pick him up. A few hours later, most of the crowd is gone, and Larry is napping on the chairs. He is woken up by Anna, who introduces herself as his AC. That stands for Afterlife Coordinator, which means Larry has died. He starts to deny it, but at the same time, he sees the confetti and realizes his granddaughter is a girl. Anna makes Larry look in the mirror, and he finally notices that he looks young again, proving her story. She explains that when people arrive at the junction, their forms revert to their happiest selves. As Anna guides him through the building, Larry keeps insisting he must go back to his wife. So, Anna slaps him to make him stop whining. She also clarifies that this isn't heaven, but a brief transition between life and eternity. At that moment, they hear an alarm, and Larry sees a man being taken down by security. Anna warns him to never walk through any red doors. Then she takes him to his temporary room and leaves him with brochures promoting eternities hosted by different religions. He must stay there until he chooses the right eternity for himself, and the closet is full of his favorite clothes. After a quick change of clothes, Larry tries to watch TV, but all the channels are ADS for different types of eternities. So he explores the junction, only to find dozens of booths promoting even more. Eventually, he finds a bar, and as soon as he sits down, a beautiful woman sits next to him. He tries to explain that he is married, but the woman keeps flirting to promote a spicy eternity. Luckily, the bartender Luke reminds her that advertising is prohibited at the bar, so she leaves. Larry wonders if the bartender is an angel, but Luke clarifies that he is just a soul who got a job to stay at the junction. Since he is still confused, Luke shares the rules. There is no switching eternities once chosen, and there are no visits to other eternities either. If he breaks a rule, stays longer than allowed, or tries to switch eternities, they will put him in the void. It is a place with nothing but darkness for all eternity. Larry shares that his wife has cancer, and he promised to take care of her, but now he feels guilty for abandoning her, so he orders another drink. The next morning, Anna wakes Larry up by climbing into his bed. While complaining about his hangover, he asks why there are souls with jobs at the junction. Anna explains that some people haven't accepted death, while others are waiting for their loved ones. The worst ones are those who can't choose. He wants to know if Joan will die soon, but they can't access that information. Seeing this, he decides to wait for her. Anna tells him he can get a job as a janitor after the 7 days provided, but he will also have to move to the basement. A few days pass, and there is no sign of Joan. Anna tells Larry this could take several months, so he decides he will prepare an eternity, so Joan feels at home when she arrives. That night, he writes a letter to his wife explaining everything. At the same time, the cancer finally kills Joan, and she wakes up on the train. The next morning, Anna is taking Larry to his eternity. He asks her to deliver his letter to Joan, but she explains it is against the rules and hugs him goodbye. Larry starts walking to the station as Joan gets off the train. On the escalator, he is shocked to see his wife, but she doesn't notice him. Desperate, Larry quickly changes lanes and runs back to the junction, where Joan is seeing her young face in a mirror. Then the couple reunites with a warm hug. Joan has already figured out she is dead and scolds Larry for dying in such a stupid way. The moment is interrupted by Ryan, Joan's Afterlife Coordinator. He drags her away from Larry and takes her to her first husband, Luke, who has been waiting for her for 67 years. They share a very sweet and emotional reunion, but Larry interrupts them because he was supposed to take Joan to their eternity. She starts having a panic attack when she realizes she must choose a husband to spend eternity with, so Ryan takes her to her room. After Joan changes into a nice dress, Ryan tries to guide her through her options. At that moment, Luke comes to see her, and a frightened Joan slams the door in his face. Ryan thinks Luke is the best option because he was loyal for over 50 years, so he leaves them alone. Meanwhile, Larry is complaining to Anna, who reveals she used to be in a relationship with Ryan. She thinks Luke is extremely handsome, so he points out that he is the one who gave Joan 65 years of marriage and children, and Anna calls that emotional blackmail. Meanwhile, Joan and Luke go for a walk around the junction, and they are awkward. Suddenly, 2 guards run nearby to catch a guy trying to escape his eternity. One of them stops to say hello to Luke and immediately recognizes Joni. It seems he has been talking a lot about her. After they are gone, he explains the rules and tells Joan he loves her, that he thought about her every day and shares sweet words before trying to kiss her. But Joan pulls away because she feels nauseous. She tells Luke she needs time to think and runs away. Minutes later, Larry invades Joan's room and brings many options for their eternity. Joan freaks out and yells at him, reminding him she needs time. She also reveals that after Larry's death, her best friend died too, which makes Larry happy because he hated her. He remembers that squatting always helped her calm down and convinces her to do it. As an elderly lady, Joan couldn't squat anymore, so it makes her happy to be able to do it again. Then Larry eats some pretzels and almost chokes again, which makes Joan freak out. She explains she needs to clear her head, so Larry apologizes for being insensitive and says they can talk in the morning. When he tries to settle into her bed, she kicks him out. Larry tries to go back to his room, but his 7 days are up, so he has to move to the basement. On the way, he sees a poster promoting a concert by the late artist Dean Martin. Joan loves that singer, so Larry asks Anna to arrange a show. He is also disappointed to find his new room is tiny. The next morning, Larry takes Joan to the waiting area, where Anna brought Dean Martin to sing while she plays the piano. However, the guy starts acting weird and trips on the stairs, making them realize this is an impersonator. Larry goes to Anna to complain, and the guy takes the chance to hit on Joan. Luke quickly comes to push him away and punch him. Then, with Ryan's help, he tries to give her flowers, but Larry immediately interrupts to complain more. The men start arguing, and Joan explodes, screaming to make them stop. Later, she takes Anna and Ryan to her room and yells at them for a while before asking them to find a solution. The coordinators make a very long phone call to get an exception to the rule. Moments later, Joan brings her husbands to the room, and the coordinators announce that due to the unique circumstances, they acquired special visas. Joan will be allowed 2 visits to an eternity, 1 with each husband. After spending time with them, she will make her decision. The guys start arguing and almost get into a fight, so Joan has to scream again. She says they will choose who goes first with a coin toss, and another argument almost starts. So Ryan has to stop them this time. Larry flips the coin, and Luke wins. During the train ride, Luke and Joan reminisce about old times. They keep smiling, but things are still very awkward between them. They arrive at a beautiful mountain surrounded by a clear sky and a welcoming forest. While wandering around, they have a great time together and even hold hands. At night, they have dinner at a restaurant, and Joan keeps talking about her children and grandchildren, which makes Luke uncomfortable. He swears he doesn't mind. What bothers him is that he couldn't have them with her, but he is happy she had a good life. Joan tells him she waited for him for a while, but eventually had to move on. Then he takes her to a building called the Archives, which can be found in every eternity. Here, every soul can revisit all the memories of their years of life. Luke and Joan watch all the important moments of their relationship, like the first date, the first kiss, the first time they were intimate, the wedding day, and the last goodbye before Luke left for the war. Joan says how much she missed him, and they kiss. The memories continue playing, and Luke has to watch how Larry proposed to Joan. He stomps out of the building saying Larry took advantage of a grieving woman. Joan tries to explain it wasn't like that, but he won't listen. Meanwhile, Larry complains about Luke because he is always telling people he died in the war to look like a hero. He is afraid he can't compete with such a beloved memory. So, Anna wants him to remember why Joan fell in love with him. He doesn't know why Joan loves him, but he knows who might help. Minutes later, Larry finds Joan's best friend, Karen, who looks quite old. Karen explains that her happiest days came after her husband died because she could finally come out of the closet and have a lover. Unfortunately, after a wonderful vacation with another woman, she had to go back home and be a closeted mother to her children. Karen admits she didn't like Larry, but he won her over. He asks why Joan fell in love with him, and Karen says she doesn't know, but assures him that he made her very happy. Then Larry goes to Luke's room, determined to find some dirt on him. Marks on the wall indicate he has been counting the days since he died, and there are sketches of Joan in a notebook. At that moment, Luke returns and accuses Larry of manipulating Joan, saying she would have been happier alone. The men get into a pathetic fight, and in the middle of it, Larry's letter falls out of his pocket. When they fall, Larry says he didn't know about Luke when he proposed, but Luke points out he did it at the pier, which he and Joan considered their special place. Meanwhile, Joan can't stand all the advertising booths, so Ryan takes her to a quiet hallway full of signs for discontinued eternities. When she admits she still doesn't know what to do, Ryan says Luke seems like the best option, but the choice is hers. The next day, Larry takes Joan to a beach eternity, which is very popular and therefore crowded. They talk for a while and almost kiss, but at that moment, a kid hits Larry with his ball and tells him about his horrible death, so the couple gets on a boat to enjoy the calm of the ocean. Larry asks for details about his funeral and apologizes for not being with her when she died. He also thinks their children would be happy to see them together again. Joan feels he is manipulating her, and an argument begins. Joan reminds him she is in a complicated situation, and Larry swears he would have waited for her as long as Luke did. When they return to the Junction, Joan wants to enter the archives with Larry, but he refuses. He thinks a person can get lost in memories and wants to protect her, but Joan believes he is afraid of what they will find. They sit on the beach and talk about their first date. Then he explains he always wanted to make things better for her. In the Junction, Luke finds the dropped letter and reads it. Meanwhile, Joan and Larry return from the date and share a kiss. He says he doesn't care where they go as long as they are together. At that moment, Luke appears with the coordinators to tell Joan that Larry broke into his room. He also hands her the letter, and now Joan knows Larry almost left. He only stayed because he saw her on the way out. Another argument starts, and Joan calls Larry selfish. In return, he says he was always Joan's consolation prize and accuses Luke of some things to try to make him look bad. Luke screams in frustration and admits he had some lovers in the last 67 years, but at least he waited for her. The men want her to make a decision now, but Joan needs more time, so the coordinators take them away. Moments later, Karen visits her with a drink, and Joan finally breaks down. Her friend comforts her and takes her to several fun booths to distract her. Joan keeps drinking and complaining about her situation, so Karen reminds her that she is dead. That means she has no obligations to anyone and can start fresh. At the bar, Larry and Luke are drinking too much, which helps them get along and even bond. They compliment each other and even say Joan doesn't deserve them. The next morning, she wakes up hungover, but she has made her decision. She calls her husbands and says she is lucky to have both, so maybe things happen the way they should. No matter who she chooses, she will end up feeling guilty. So she announces she chooses neither and leaves with tears in her eyes. Then Joan prepares to leave and spend her eternity with Karen. Meanwhile, Larry tells Luke he was right. He proposed at the pier because Luke was always the ghost he couldn't compete with. He wonders if he choked on the pretzel because he saw the wedding photo. In return, Luke admits he is very jealous of the life Larry built with Joan. The guys then share why their bodies chose these forms. Luke looks like the day he and Joan argued about starting a family, while Larry looks like the time Joan was pregnant with their second child. Suddenly he realizes something and runs out of the room. At the station, he finds Joan on the train and asks her to get off for a final talk. He points out that her hair is long, but she always wore it short during their marriage. This means she was happier with Luke, so he wants her to go with him. At first, Joan denies it, but Larry insists it is the right thing. They both cry as they share their last hug. Sometime later, Luke and Joan are on a train to their eternity. Larry is wandering the Junction because he still doesn't know where to go and discovers that Anna and Ryan are back. Anna talks to Larry privately and says she is proud of him, then explains she chose to stay at the Junction because helping lost souls gave her a purpose, and Larry helped her remember why she loves this job. In the mountain eternity, Joan and Luke start a new life together. They have fun on dates and make friends with other souls. At night, they finally get to be intimate. After Luke falls asleep, Joan starts to have some doubts and decides to visit the archives, where she watches the memory of the day she met Larry. Over the next few days, Luke keeps taking Joan on all kinds of activities with other souls, but she isn't having fun. Every night, she visits the archives and revisits more of her memories with Larry. The archives clerk tells her it isn't healthy to spend so much time there, and that it is important to move on. One night, Luke says this is truly the perfect life, and Joan doesn't know what to answer. The next morning, he announces he booked another activity, and Joan finally breaks down. She says she made a mistake choosing him, causing him to get angry and start yelling. Joan explains she was happier with him because it was a young and foolish love without the burden of a mortgage, jobs, and children. However, love should be more than that. It should include the bad times too. She also thinks Luke is in love with the Joan from 67 years ago and never moved on, but she has changed and is no longer the same person. She then announces she will try to go back, even if it means risking being caught. She cries as she tells Luke she loved him, but he walks away. A few hours later, Joan is trying to make a plan to escape while practicing with a knife. After thinking hard about the situation, Luke returns and agrees to be her distraction. The pair goes to the archives, and Luke pretends to have a breakdown in front of the clerk. While the man comforts him, Joan sneaks in. Then Luke also enters like a normal customer. He and Joan watch the wedding memory and say goodbye for the last time. She sneaks behind the memory and goes through the red door that leads her to a hallway with her childhood memories. At that moment, she hears the alarm and the guards arriving. So she runs until she finds a door in the memory of 2 soldiers informing her of Luke's death. A washing machine door throws her into a memory of her arguing with Larry. The guards are still coming, so Joan blocks the door with a chair and runs upstairs, where she finds her old self. Old Joan says Larry's name before young Joan tries to hide under the bed. The guards are right behind her, but she keeps crawling until she appears on the train tracks. Walking through the tunnel, Joan manages to return to the Junction. She tries to ask the receptionist about Larry, but at that moment she receives a wanted notice and has to run again. In the booth area, she bumps into Ryan and Anna, who hide her and tell the guards she went in the opposite direction. Then, she asks them which eternity Larry went to. However, the coordinators shock her with the answer. In the bar, she finds him working as a bartender. They share a drink, and Joan asks Larry to go with her, but she warns him it could be dangerous because she is a fugitive. Larry agrees to do it anyway. Moments later, the couple is in an eternity that copies the neighborhood where they lived their entire married life. Ending like this, eternity, fantasy, and drama movie from 2025. And I'll see you in the next video. That was Movie Solved. Peace out.